this morning. Ephesians chapter 1. Ephesians chapter 1 and verse 10 is part 2 of our message from this verse. It says that in the dispensation of the fullness of times, he might gather together in one all things in Christ, both which are in heaven and which are on earth, even in him. Last time we looked at this verse a few weeks ago, we're talking about the millennial reign of Christ, the 1,000-year reign of Christ, that future event that's coming. When people start talking about eschatology or things to come, one of two things usually happen whenever you're in a Baptist church. Either people get excited, nervous, or start debating, and maybe all three. But in the times that we live, I think there's a lot of excitement about it because there's a lot of things going on. A lot of things going on. In fact, right now, with the way that the world is moving, I believe that the world is being set up for one world government. And I don't believe that we'll be around for the Antichrist. I don't believe that the vaccine or the mask is the mark of the beast. But I do believe that these things kind of set the stage. And we can begin to see how those things will come to play someday after we're gone out of here. And I do believe that those things will come to pass. I believe that the next thing that we ought to be looking for is the rapture. I believe that the Lord's going to come back and take us out of here. And I believe that there's going to be some problems, some trouble, some tribulation that God's people will go through, but not the great tribulation. And when we look at that, we see that there's coming, those things are coming. But then at the end of the tribulation, there's this time that we want to talk about this morning, the 1,000-year reign of Christ. And we keep in mind that as we talk about this and as we look at it, that Jesus is king. We're not saying that he's not king now. We're not saying that he's limited to being king only for 1,000 years in the future. We're not saying that. We're saying that this 1,000-year reign is simply 1,000 years when he reigns upon the earth in this literal time period that is coming. And every time that I read about something on the news or hear about some dictator or would-be tyrant trying to do something, whether it's China trying to take over, or Iran or North Korea, or even the President of the United States, whenever he got up and said that if the governors wouldn't listen to him, he was going to get them out of the way. I kind of smile within myself after I get angry, because the anger is the flesh, right? I just want to rise up and, I'm after all descended of rebels. All my ancestors fought against the British and then against the Yankees, and well, not all of them, but the ones I'm proudest of. They fought against tyranny, and I don't know what's going to happen to this country. It's kind of interesting to think about that if the federal government does push the states, is it going to, are the states going to push back, and to what extent, and all those things, but at the end of the day, we realize that one of these days, Jesus is going to clean all this mess up. Every bit of it. And all the kings of the earth will have to submit to him. They will have to. They may deny it now, but they will someday. Submit to the reign of the Lord Jesus Christ. In Isaiah chapter 2, the book of Isaiah chapter 2, and verse 3, it says, "And it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. Many people shall go and say, Come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob. He will teach us of his ways. We will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. He shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people. They shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more." What a time that will be when the nations will submit to the Lord. In that time when they will not learn war anymore. It's amazing to me when we think about even just our little bit of history as a country. Look back in our history and the highlights of our country, the great men, the great times, the events. What are they centered around when you study American history? They're centered around war, right? I mean, we think about George Washington, we think about Robert E. Lee, we think about what we consider MacArthur, we think about the names that we remember are the men that lived during times of war. Even now, what do we remember? Should we have not forgotten? September 11th, 20 years ago. What was it like 20 years ago today, waking up and that numb feeling, that feeling of anger, that feeling of fear that we all felt 20 years ago. Not knowing. I remember September, I believe it was September 4th, 2001 was my first flight ever. So September 4th, 2001, I was out west when the Twin Towers fell. And my mom called me and woke me up because it was earlier over there than what it was over here. So I watched on the news. My flight home was September 22nd. I remember my family was worried for me to take a plane trip, even though it was 11 days afterwards. They said, "David, do you want us to rent you a car? Do you want us to help you so you can drive?" I already paid for this plane ticket. I'm not, it's the way I've always been. If I paid for it, I want to. And anyway, if it's my time to die, I'll die in a plane or a car, it won't matter. But I remember the difference from September 4th to September 22nd. September 4th, the plane was packed, everyone was happy, and just nobody cared, nobody seemed to have a care in the world. But September 22nd, hardly nobody was in that plane. And everybody was concerned, everybody was worried. The guy behind me said, "Hey, if anybody shows up with box cutters and a turban, this is what we're going to do." He had a plan. Those thoughts were, of course, it's doubtful that the hijackers had a turban, but that was just kind of what was going through his head, then for 20 years, for 20 long years, we fought in Afghanistan. Then we finally got out. But now there's a concern about what's going to happen next because of all the equipment we left behind. And whether China's going to fill that void and all those things, right? And so one thing after another after another. The Bible tells us about a time when the nations beat their swords into plowshares, their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Imagine a Taliban that we can actually trust, a China that we can trust, a U.S. government we can trust. Not yet. If the United States were to be so foolish to beat their swords into plowshares, their spears into pruning hooks, guess what will happen? Someone will attack us real quick. Even if we were to pull out of every country, which I think we probably should, all over the world where we've somehow become a police for different wars, even if we were to pull back and say, all right, we're not going to be there anymore, all our soldiers are going to come home, we would still need to have some sort of a force in order to prevent another 9/11 or a Pearl Harbor or a Fort Sumter or whatever, or the War of 1812. It's crazy to think about that the British actually attacked us during the War of 1812 and all those things, but we have been attacked on our own shores and those sort of things. So we can't give up those things now, but someday there will be a time of peace during the Lord's reign. Over in the book of Psalm 46, in the 46th Psalm, verses 8 through 10. God reigneth over the heathen. God sitteth upon the throne of his holiness. The princes of the people are gathered together. Sorry, I'm in chapter 47. I'm in 46. Verses 8 through 10. It says, Come, behold the works of the Lord, what desolations he hath made in the earth. He maketh wars to cease unto the end of the earth. He breaketh the bow and cutteth the spear in sunder. He burneth the chariot in the fire. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the heathen. I will be exalted in the earth. If there's ever peace on this earth, it's not going to be because of some world leader. It's not. Think about all the attempts at peace that have happened. The League of Nations, the United Nations. What were they there for? Supposedly to stop wars. Have they happened? Not at all. In fact, I dare say they've increased wars. Presidents. By the way, our Constitution does not give to presidents the power to declare wars or send troops anywhere for the length of time that they do, but it's the way it is, isn't it? Only the Lord can bring peace upon this earth. And when men look to these fellows, we see, well, look at the wording here. Come, behold the works of the Lord, what desolations he hath made in the earth. How's he going to bring about this peace? Desolations. To make something desolate means to lay waste, to ruin. Oh, the Lord's going to do that, isn't he? Right now we see the things that are going on. It's sad when I was walking through Savannah, the drugs and the sin that's just out there in the open, the so-called rainbow gay flag flying over top of the building there. And I don't know what sort of building it was. People just going about living their lives like nothing. Someday judgment is coming on this earth. Judgment came upon this earth during the days of Noah when he sent a great flood. And he said, I'll never judge this world in the same way. But judgment is coming. Armageddon, the tribulation period, and then the battle of Armageddon at the end. And yeah, peace is coming. But there's going to be some big changes that will happen to this earth first. The world's populations will be much, much smaller at that point. The world's armies will be conquered. Satan himself will be bound for 1,000 years. Over in the book of Revelation chapter 20. Revelation chapter 20, beginning at verse 1 there. And I saw an angel. Revelation 20, verse 1. I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. He laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years, and cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that he must be loosed a little season. The book of Revelation has been compared to a union station in which all the lines of prophecy have their destination. And in here we read of this 1,000 years in which the devil, the dragon, that old serpent, Satan, will be bound for 1,000 years. Now he's not bound yet. But one of these days he will be. He will be. And when he is, that old troublemaker will be cast into the bottomless pit. It's interesting to think about a bottomless pit, what it must mean to be cast there. For 1,000 years, the devil will be falling and never hit bottom. Cast there with a seal, chained up, that he should deceive the nations no more. What's he doing now? He's deceiving nations. What's happened in this country? Why is it that we have fallen the way that we have fallen? Now, I can't say that this country was ever perfect. But certainly you go back into the founding of this country, certainly this country was founded upon some Christian principles. Those men, if they weren't Christian, they sure did believe some biblical things that were good and helpful in the founding of a country. In just a few generations, we've squandered that away as a nation. Why? The deception of the devil. The depravity of man. And look at what's happening now, even in our own generation. best medical system in the world, and we're throwing it all away. Every bit of it. Inflation is about to hit really bad. I mean, it's hitting bad now, but it's about to get even worse. What kind of a leader of this country would do that? And what kind of people would support that sort of thing? Deception. Deception. And all the history that we've got going on, and it's been tried time and time again, communism, Marxism, fascism, every bit of it, fail, 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 fail. Death, 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 destruction. Venezuela, Cuba, all these places, China. And the only reason why China is even doing anything prosperous is why? Because they're able to sell to capitalist countries. North Korea and other places. Man, deception. Deception. Throw it all away. But one of these days, Jesus is going to say, hey, enough is enough. And he's going to chain him up. Put him in that bottomless pit for 1,000 years. Verse 7, it says, and when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. This guy just don't give up. Now you would think that at least by this time, after 1,000 years of being in a bottomless pit, chained up, that would be enough to reform somebody. And at least think about it, because keep in mind, he's had 6,000 some years to study the Bible, to know what was in it. He's read this, he knows. And why do you think, by the way, that he attacks Revelation and Genesis more than any other book of the Bible? It's because those two books are the ones that are key to his destruction. But he's going to see this happen with his own two eyes. And he's going to be like, all right, here I am. I'm in this bottomless pit for 1,000 years. What's the use of me trying? But he's going to still try. He don't give up. And he's going to get out. He's going to try to keep on doing what he's going to be doing, because there's no real reformation of the devil. But at the end of it, the Lord will still have the victory. Because look at what happens in verse 9. It says, and they went up on the breadth of the earth, compassed the camp of the saints about, and the beloved city, and fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. And the devil that deceived them was cast in a lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. At this final battle, it's going to be almost like a shootout at the OK Corral. How many seconds was that thing? Like 9 seconds? It was done, gone. And this is going to be within seconds. Him and those nations that he's gone out to deceive. And that's the other thing. The nations. 1,000 years of great prosperity. And we sometimes sit back and think, well, how in the world is this? After all the good years that we've seen in this country, the good times, even in our lifetime, the good years when Reagan was president, even the good, whether you like him or not, the good years that we had with Trump. And now some of these people are just ready to throw it all away. But imagine 1,000 good years. 1,000 good years, not just in one country, but all over the earth. And these nations, the devil will be back. Say, oh good, devil, you're back. We've been missing some trouble. Some bad times, some hard times, because men love darkness rather than light. And they'll go and attack. They know they can't get to the Lord, so they'll go and attack the beloved city, Jerusalem. The fire will come down out of heaven and devour them, and the devil that deceived them was cast in the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and false prophet are. By that time, that's where they'll be. Shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. Away with the idea that the devil is the king of hell. He's not. Hell and the lake of fire and brimstone, those are places that are there for his torment. That's where he's going to go to be tormented forever and ever. Well, we kind of just have a couple more things I want to bring up about the 1,000-year reign, but not only will there be great peace during those 1,000 years, but in Isaiah 55, in Isaiah chapter 55, verse 13, instead of the thorn shall come up the fir tree, instead of the briar shall come up the myrtle tree, and it shall be to the Lord for a name, for an everlasting sign that shall not be cut off. And then along with that, Isaiah chapter 11. Isaiah chapter 11 and verses 6 through 9. The wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the young lion, and fatling together, and the little child shall lead them. The cow and the bear shall feed, their young ones shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox, and the sucking child shall play on the hole of the asp. The weaned child shall put his hand on the cockatrice den. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea. The curse will be lifted. The curse as we know it today. Oh, I love this world, how beautiful it is. But there's still evidence of the curse. We can't go into the garden without having thorns and thistles and briars. Can't go out into the woods without fear of a snake. Certainly, we can't go take the lamb with the wolf, or the leopard with the kid, or the calf and the lion together. But prior to the curse, that's what could happen. And the Lord here in His Word said, hey, one of these days those things will happen. Even the cow and the bear, the sucking child will be able to play on the hole of the poisonous snake. You wouldn't dare do that now. But oh, what a joy it is to know that one of these days the curse will be lifted. The curse will be lifted. In Zechariah chapter 14 and verse 17 through 19, look at what it says here. I'm sorry, verse 16. Zechariah chapter 14. Zechariah 14 and verse 16. It shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem shall even go up from year to year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. It shall be that whoso will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, even upon them shall be no rain. During that time, those that are left from the battle of Armageddon, they'll go to worship the Lord. Now there'll be some who rebel, but God will punish those who do not. And in Revelation chapter 5 and verse 10. In Revelation 5 and verse 10 it says, "And hath made us unto our God kings and priests, and we shall reign." Where? On the earth. We as God's people will reign with the Lord. What a day, what a time, what a period that will be when Jesus is King on this earth during the 1,000-year reign. Coming, not yet, but it is coming, and we look forward to it. May the Lord add a blessing to His word.